And we are recording for Chapter 5, Risk Management. Y'all are excited, aren't you? Oops, now it's not switching slides. There we go. Learning objectives. Same ones that are listed in the book. We're on slide 4. We literally just started. Welcome.
Hey, what's up?
I know I didn't do good on ignoring him, did I?
Oh, I went there earlier. I stopped to use the restroom, so welcome back. Hey, thank you.
Oh my gosh, John's here too. Welcome. Wow, it's a full house tonight. Everybody's here. So we're going to go over this really fascinating chapter on risk management.
All right, it's good to see you guys.
Yeah, no, if I have to suffer through it, so do you. It's not my favorite topic. Disaster recovery last semester, that was much more interesting than risk management. But
Let's
it's
do that
very
then.
important.
No.
We can't. We have to.
All right.
We need an overview. Otherwise, you're going to be looking at your homework going, I have no clue. I don't want to do this.
What if I read the slides? Because you're not going to read them really fast.
No.
Really fast.
No, because I get to pick on Chris tonight.
All right. In that case, let's go.
All right. So, introduction. Why do we need risk management? Anybody other than Chris? Because I get to pick on Chris for the rest of the slides.
So hopefully.
Trick question, we don't.
Yes, we do. We need
Oh.
risk management.
Work on
flyer.
preventing problems before they happen.
We need to identify them. We need to identify any of the risks that we have within our organization so that we can find a way to mitigate those risks. Or
Cowards.
you're in a mood today.
I am.
So risk management is the process of identifying, assessing, and reducing risks facing an organization. You need to know yourself, you know your enemy, and the responsibility of each within the organization. And this is a little chart on the components of risk management, risk identification, risk assessment, and risk control, and the different things that are listed underneath those. Information security management users and information technology all must work together. Communities of interest are responsible for evaluating the risk controls, determining which controls are cost effective for the organization, because not every control is going to be cost effective. Sometimes it's more effective to just deal with the aftermath than it is to prevent it. Acquiring or installing the needed controls and ensuring that the controls remain effective. Because with the way our IT changes, what's good today may not be good tomorrow. Risk appetite identifies the quantity and nature of risk that the organizations are willing to accept as trade-offs between perfect security and unlimited accessibility. It's one that balances the expense of controlling the vulnerabilities against the possible losses that the vulnerabilities are exposed. If the vulnerabilities are exploited. And residual risk is risk that has not been completely removed, shifted, or planned for. And residual risk kind of goes into the risk that your asset is facing, the amount that's protected, what you've reduced the risk, or the risk of your, to your asset by, and what's left over, what's not covered. Risk management involves identifying, classifying, and prioritizing the organization's assets. And components of risk identification, which I think it actually has this near the end as well. First step in risk by all means, take your phone call. No? Anybody else? Are y'all on silent? Better make sure mine's on silent. If I tease y'all and mine's not, you give me a hard time.
Then how will you hear your alarm?
The alarm actually sounds anyway, but I actually don't think I turned that on.
Don't worry, we got your back.
You'll holler at me? Like holler at me like 5
She
minutes
will.
before?
I will.
You're my timekeeper.
Yep.
So you have to identify the organize a team. So if you get a team together, you can, it's going to tell you this later in the slides, but when you put together a team to identify your risks and then to come up with a plan to fix them, resolve them, mitigate them, it's better to have a wide variety of people. So like someone from his background that's in finance, you know, his background in military, yours is medical but military, a student. If you put all those together, you're going to come up with different ideas and you're going to think of different risks. Because no two people, I mean, if you and I had the same background, our thought process is probably going to be a little, you know, similar. But if you have a wide variety of different people, it'll make it easier on your organization. Begins with identification and inventory of assets, including the elements of the organization's system. Assets are then categorized. So traditional, you have people, procedures, data, software, hardware, software development lifecycle, employees, non-employees, so on and so forth. Risk management, you have trusted employees, non-trusted employees, like visitors and strangers. Standard procedures, business sensitive, so like at base it'd be like classified and unclassified. Transmission, applications, the various components. They're all assets. Human resources, documentation, and data information assets are more difficult to identify. You have the people and their information, like when we had the break-in with, what was it called? Where all of our IDs got stolen from Tinker.
OPM?
Yeah, OPM, thank you. All of our information got stolen. That would be like the HR, where we got our social security number stolen, addresses, spouse information. Procedures, data, and I would say this was a big one at Tinker, because we have no backup process in place, and so we lose data a lot. But along the lines of
That's interesting.
weighing, okay, so how much is my computer worth? If my computer goes down, is the whole network going to go down? It's not. So what are they going to back up? They don't really back up any one particular person's data, but they back up the servers. So they kind of prioritize what's more affordable for them. I mean, and how much are they going to lose if someone's computer goes down? Because a lot of times, like in the case where the person went down in LP, he lost everything, but he was able to email everybody out in the department that he covered or that he assisted, and they were able to send him emails with most of the documentation that he was missing. There's a lot of extra work to recover it, but he was still able to recover it. What information attributes to track depend on the needs of the organization and preferences, needs of the security and information technology community. And asset attributes can be considered, or to be considered are like IP addresses, MAC addresses, so on and so forth. Asset inventory. Unless information assets are identified in inventory, they cannot be effectively protected. How often do y'all do inventory at your bank?
Typically twice a year.
Twice a
Well,
year?
we audit our inventory twice a year. Our inventory is continually updated. When we retire a machine, it's put on the retired list. When we buy a new machine, it's put on the deployed list.
Gotcha. Ours is kind of complicated, and I just got into it, and it's not very fun. I don't think it's fun because it's very tedious going around and checking serial numbers on every single device, and then making sure that you track, you know, like when a new device comes in, you send a new device out where you sent it to. If you sent one to be destroyed, you have to have a lot of extra documentation there. But it's necessary, otherwise you can't keep track of your devices. Asset categorization. People, employees and non-employees, procedures. Either do not expose knowledge useful to a potential attacker or are sensitive and could allow adversary taking advantage. Data components, software components, hardware, either the usual system devices and peripherals. or part of an information security control system. Many organizations have data classification schemes, confidential, internal, and public data. Categories must be comprehensive and mutually exclusive. Each data user must be assigned authorization level, indicating classification level. What is the clean desk policy?
Remove all the classified items and leave nothing in plain sight.
So it's not just making sure my desk is cleaned off and everything's put away at the end of the day?
No.
Oh, okay. Just checking. Dumpster diving. Everybody knows what dumpster diving is now, don't you?
No.
Really? Y'all want to do dumpster diving?
Ever seen Hackers?
Okay, well, we're not going to do dumpster diving because everybody was complaining, saying, okay, it was a legitimate complaint. Because if it's illegal in the city, I don't want anybody getting in trouble. So, I thought about having y'all just call around and check the city ordinances on that, but I decided not to, and there are 2 projects up on the page.
By the way, tell Ken at your house, that crosscut on that shredder, it's a good investment. I couldn't find anything on you guys.
Okay, good. But I know you're kidding because we haven't dumped the shredder lately. So, but if you do,
But do you guys have a crosscut?
yes,
Oh, see, that's
yes, and we have a pile stacked on top of the shredder ready to be shredded. And he'll go through and he'll shred it all at once.
remember.
Because I don't do it, I just let him do it.
Did you see Argo? Really?
No.
Great movie,
I
but
don't know if I saw that.
it's the Iranian hostage crisis, Ben Affleck's movie.
Oh, okay.
But they shredded all the IDs, but they had all the sweatshop kids reassemble them because they're just strip shreds.
Oh, yeah.
Crosscut.
Oh, and another thing that for our 2 latecomers, we are going to, not this Wednesday, next Wednesday, start watching Imitation Game. So it's not required.
Oh, great movie.
Thank you. It is, isn't it though?
Yeah, okay.
It's still good. It's still good. Just
I'm kidding.
yes, okay. So,
Cumberbatch is my boy.
okay, so we're gonna start watching that next Wednesday. You don't have to come, but it's gonna be fun.
And it counts for an assignment?
It does not count for an assignment, but I might bring pizza. I might. We'll see. So I'll take like a head count on Monday on who thinks they'll be here. Questions help develop criteria for asset evaluation. What's most critical to the organization's success? What generates the most revenue or profitability? What plays the biggest role in generating revenue and delivering services? What would be the biggest, most expensive to replace or protect? And what would be the most embarrassing or cause the greatest liability if revealed? And I was going to have Chris do a little bit on that, but I think I'm going to wait for later because there's some other stuff. And this is just a sample inventory worksheet. Chris is going, what in the world is she going to make me?
The anticipation is building.
I know, right? It's not bad. Information asset prioritization. Create weighting for each category based on the answers to the questions. Prioritize using the weighted factor analysis and list the assets in order of their importance. And you get that. And we are not going to go over that. You just need to know it exists. And I don't know that you get into it in depth in any of the classes at Rush State either.
Covering what?
Bless you.
The weighted factor. And this stupid thing is going to drive me nuts.
The weight factor?
Yeah, the weighted factor analysis worksheet. We're not going to get into that. Threat assessment. Which threats present danger to our assets? Which threats present the most danger to information? What would it cost to recover? And which one requires the greatest expenditure to prevent? And here's some examples of some threats, like forces of nature, fire, floods, earthquakes, lightning, theft, illegal confiscation of property, software attacks. I understand most of those. Specifying asset vulnerabilities. Examine how each threat could be perpetrated and list the process prioritized list of assets with their vulnerabilities is achieved. Can be combined with weighted list of threats to form a threat vulnerability assessment worksheet. And this is a vulnerability assessment of a hypothetical DMZ router. These are some of the threats. These are some of the threats. Can't see me pointing on the screen over there. So like human error, employees or contractors may cause an outage if configuration errors are made. Software attacks, the internet protocol is vulnerable to denial of service. Outsider IT fingerprinting activities can reveal sensitive information unless suitable controls are implemented. So there's a lot of threats that our information is exposed to. And this is in the book, and they explain it, but you just list the assets in order of your most critical down, and then the worst threats down. And it kind of gives you a chart that tells you where you need to concentrate on. Risk assessment evaluates the relative risk for each vulnerability, assigns a risk rating, and the goal at this point is to create a method of evaluating the relative risk for each listed vulnerability. And see, then we have the major risks of major stages again. Determining the loss frequency. And this is the part we get into that I don't really like a lot. But this is important for when you're calculating, okay, which ones do we need to tackle and which ones do we need to let slide. So you need to figure out how often the risk could happen. So targeted by hackers once every 5 years. So it would be a 20%. Then you determine the attacks, what's the probability that the attack would actually happen? I mean, what is the probability that they would actually be able to penetrate your defenses? And they give us an example of 10%. So that's going to be the loss frequency. Okay, evaluating the loss magnitude, you're going to figure out how much you're going to be losing if the loss happens. So you combine the value of the information asset with the percentage of the asset lost in an event of a successful attack. So it's the loss frequency, which was the first one we did, times the loss magnitude, minus the percentage of risk mitigated by the current control. So how much you're not going, how much you're saving basically by having the controls in place that you have, and then plus you have an element of uncertainty. And there it is written out a little easier to understand, perhaps. So you're taking the likelihood that it's going to happen, what's the likelihood that it's going to happen, that it will happen, and you multiply it by what the value of the asset is times the probable loss. So how much, what the chances are that you're going to lose it, and then plus the uncertainty of the estimates. Which is why I said you don't really have to go that in depth whenever we have the project or the paper. It's not really complicated, but you can make it complicated. So like, for an example, what's a loss or what is a risk that you encounter every day?
Losing your soul.
Okay, everybody drives to school, right? Okay,
Die.
so that what is the risk of driving to school?
Sure that's a risk.
What? Get into a wreck.
Get a
So,
ticket.
yeah, get a ticket. Anybody else?
Carjacked.
Okay, what's the
Lose your
probability of getting your car jacked?
What neighborhood?
Huh?
What neighborhood?
Well, this is your example, so
My neighborhood? Very, very low.
very low. Okay, so you could calculate that. So it's just something like that. It doesn't have to be something really, like complicated. You could do, okay, what's the risk if you get a virus? What would it cost to fix the computer if you get a virus? That kind of thing. Or if you get a virus and it locks up your entire computer and you lose everything, or a hard drive failure. So any one of those, come up with your own. There's a lot of different things that we come into every day that can be used as your example. Did anybody look at the homework for this week?
I'm doing it right now.
Thank you. That makes me feel so much better. I'm glad you're doing it while I'm teaching.
I'm on it.
Okay. Anyway, so you want to explain what the homework is? Read it off?
Yeah.
Since you're doing it right now?
We can choose stressful.
Examine some risks in your life and utilizing cost-benefit analysis. Outline some of the ways you can control the risk you encounter. Include some proposed solutions, implementations, along with some actual implementations you have put in place. Be sure to include a minimum of 4 different risks you encounter and how they are being or not being managed.
Okay, so I said 4. I don't remember saying 4, but okay, I said 4. So like on the car example, what would be something that you did to mitigate the risk?
Put your seatbelt.
Okay,
Airbags,
okay.
AAA,
Car insurance, AAA.
handgun under the seat, the carjack.
Yeah, I'm not so certain about that one. AAA is great because if you go to like Universal Studios or anything, make sure you bring that AAA card.
Or
It is awesome.
stay overnight at most hotels.
Exactly. Then give you some better rates. I keep thinking, okay, we probably shouldn't renew this year, but you know, just as soon as we don't, we're going to wind up needing it. It's one of those things. It's kind of like the car insurance in your car. You're like, okay, I don't really need it, but then you're like, okay, if I get in a car accident, I could be sued because this other person got injured, and that would be really bad. So.
I just think of the acting because my doctor friend in San Salvador recently was at a red light. Somebody pulled up to her in a motorcycle, taps on the window with the handgun.
And
says,
carjacked her.
It says, no, it just says, you know, hand over your cell phone and wallet.
Wow. See, that's.
That's why I don't live in San Salvador.
Yeah. Documenting the results of your risk and assessment, finalize summary, documenting the ranks of the vulnerability, describe your assets, vulnerability, loss frequency, loss magnitude, that kind of thing. It's just keeping track of it so you know which ones are the most important and what will cause the greatest damage.
Tell your friend to keep a fake purse in the front seat.
Oh, that is smart.
With miscellaneous crap in it, a little bit of junk.
That is smart.
Great to
And
hand
just
out.
pass the whole purse out.
Is that what you do? Fake purse up there?
Fake wallet.
Do you really? Oh, that is clever. I should do that. Oh, I
I've never thought of that. That
Just
sounds
make
like a
sure that
really
it's
good
got a little bit
idea.
in it, plus about $20. That way they don't get too grumpy.
That is good.
$7, they kind of like,
He's been carjacked before. He knows what he's talking about. You can tell.
So do you carry that with you when you go out too?
no.
No. Okay. I was just curious.
This is the shirt off his back guy. He says, you know what? You asked for my shirt, I'll give you my shoes too. That's the kind of guy he is.
Oh,
I don't see that.
I've been judged.
You have. Fair risk approach. A fair approach to risk assessment. Identify the scenario. Evaluate the loss frequency. Evaluate probable loss magnitude, and derive and articulate your risk. So, risk control. We're going to go over defense, transfer, mitigation, acceptance, and termination. So, defense, they have listed application of policy, education, and applying technology. So, you know, like your software updates. That would be defense. Got to have a line of defense. Transfer. I can't remember what I was going to have you explain. Maybe it was one of the earlier ones. Because I remember reading it and I was like, ooh, yeah, I can pick on Chris for this. But we could pick on you for this
We
too.
can go back.
No, it's okay. We're not going to go back. We go onward. Unless we have more time, and then we may go back. Just so I can pick on you. So, transfer. How would you transfer risk?
There's a lot of different ways. What's really common inside the organization is when a problem hits, you decide which department's going to pay for it. And there'll be a lot of people that kind of scurry to say, no, this was marketing's bill, they have to pay for this. Or marketing wanted this, they have to pay for that.
Okay. What were you thinking?
I was just thinking that example is like base security. We used to do it in-house, used to be all blue suiters, and then they started contracting out, and now you got like gate guards at the gate. So
Exactly.
transferring the risk from the onus being on your organization to the onus being on another organization.
Exactly. Could be also something like insurance, because you're transferring it to the insurance company in the event that there's and incidents.
I used to help write cyber insurance policies.
Oh, really? Cool. Mitigate. So this is what we covered pretty much last week. Your incident response, disaster recovery, and your business continuity. It's planning for an attack or planning for a risk, and then finding a way to cover it in some way, some fashion. Depends on what it is and the level that it would affect your organization as to where it would go. Acceptance. So what would be acceptance?
What, like accepting a risk?
Mm-hmm. So it'd be like doing nothing. Just saying, okay.
Self-insurance, basically.
Yeah. So like if I decided, oh, okay, well I can accept this, and so I get in a car accident, and I'm like, okay, well I'll just pay for the car, the car to be repaired.
Like not, like if you buy a new smartphone and they offer you the,
And you don't
$100
take it.
for the, hey, if you drop it or whatever, we can fix it, replace it, and you just say,
Yeah.
Cell
I'll just
phone
buy a new
insurance.
phone
I just
if
buy
it's,
it.
yeah.
Cell phone insurance is a sham.
Well, see, a lot of
because-
times they'll give you like a 1-year insurance anyway, or kind of sort of a 1 year.
Because I had to replace an iPhone and it was still $300 to replace the iPhone with the insurance.
Really?
Yeah,
Really, Apple Care's deductible is only $79.
I did it through my cell carrier.
Yeah.
Oh
that
wow!
to
See,
Indiana.
my battery went out on my cell phone, and it was like going dead, like at 33% and stuff, driving me absolutely insane. So like the day before my contract was up, my 1-year thing, we went to Apple and said, okay, we need some help here. And so they replaced the battery inside and gave me back the phone. Still did the exact same thing. Well, it was after the warranty at that point, but we called them back and we said, okay, it's still happening. They're like, okay, bring it back in, and they actually just replaced the whole thing, didn't charge us anything.
They become less generous. I don't know how long ago that was, but
It was probably 2 years ago, maybe not. It was for my iPhone 5. So I've
But,
had an
uh,
iPhone 6 and an
at least
iPhone 6
with
Plus.
screen cracks, they used to just replace for free. But
I've never had a screen crack.
really,
Except for on the Kindle.
I was lucky.
That was a different situation. Oh yeah, see, I buy these really nice cases because I drop my phone like at least 5 or 6 times a day, literally. I'm not exaggerating. And I was looking to get a different case this time, something that would cover it, I thought, a little bit better. And Ken's like, oh no, get the same one because it's been doing you really good. So, I got the same one. Because he wanted me to get you what?
Don't fix what's not broken.
Well, I thought, I need something so if I drop it from a higher distance. I know, what's the chances that I'm going to drop it from this height? Okay, knock on
You
wood.
can calculate your risk.
Get a life
management.
Because I don't want to drop it from that height. I almost ran over it the other day though. Because Ken handed it to me and I was in the middle of doing something in the garage, so I stuck it on top of my car. And then I went to back out of the garage
I don't
and it
think
was
it's
still
covered for
on
that.
there. And Ken was standing there, he started screaming at me and waving his arms. He's like, stop! I was like, what? He's like, your phone! I'm like, oops. Because he told me before I got in the car, he's like, don't forget your phone. And I just walked right out and got in the car. Habit. Anyway, so yeah, that was a really good example. Because I do that all the time. Like, Ken got me a new camera and we didn't take insurance on that. It's kind of like, what are the chances you're going to break it? Of course, with me dropping things, of course I use the strap religiously when I have my camera. I don't because I'm scared to death I'm going to drop it. And like when we go on cruises, I like to take pictures. And so I'll like lean over the balcony or the edge of the ship and I'll take my picture and I'm like, got a death grip on it. Sometimes my finger will be in it, but that's because I was scared that I was going to drop the phone. But anyway, that's beside the point. Termination. So what would termination be?
The elimination of risk.
So like eliminating doing business with a company because the risk is too great or something. Anybody have like a really good example like he had with the phone?
Not
Cancel.
termination.
Okay, well not
Would that
driving, but
be-
that's not really a.
Like last week, those people that were complaining about the TFCU cards, we've been out about, hey, we can't do that, so we just go to a different bank or get a different card.
Or decide that they're not going to do the cards anymore, they'll just carry cash or use a check. That could possibly be termination.
Or,
I was
go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say cancel on a vendor's contract because they won't provide necessary documentation or SAS 70.
Or they won't update their security to make it to where it's within good, yeah,
within this
good
decade.
code. Yeah. So. And summary of risk control strategies. That was just your defense transfer, so on and so forth. Selecting a risk control strategy. So, the 258. I think it's page 2. Because it actually explains these quite nicely. Much better than I would remember. Nope, that wasn't it. There was something on 258 that I was thinking, you know, this would be good. I could just like pull up the book and just read it. Oh, right here, on page 271. So, rules of thumb on strategy selection. What?
I'm sorry. He was looking at his book on, and I was just wondering what he was using.
So, when a vulnerability exists, implement security controls to reduce the likelihood of the vulnerability being exploited. When a vulnerability can be exploited, apply more protections. When an attacker's cost is less than the potential gain, make changes, apply protections so that it would cost them more than what they would gain. When potential loss is substantial, apply design principles, architectural designs, and other protections to limit the extent of the attack. Here's a nice little flowchart. So you got to identify the viable threats, threat vulnerability. This is the one I really wanted to go over though. Let me go on down. Justifying controls before implementing any of the control strategies for a specific vulnerability. Organization must explore all the consequences of the vulnerability to the information asset. Items that could affect the cost of a control or safeguard include cost of development or acquisition, training, implementation costs, service costs, and cost of maintenance. So, expected loss per risk stated in the following equation is the annualized loss expectancy. It equals the single loss expectancy times the annualized rate of occurrence. So it's how much you're going to lose in any one occurrence, or how much you're going to lose in any one thing, and how often you think that will happen in 1 year. And then there it is right there. The single loss expectancy is the asset value times the exposure factor. Here's more of those. The ALE is the annualized loss expectancy. So they have the cost-benefit analysis is the annualized loss expectancy prior and then post minus the annualized cost of securing, annualized cost of safeguarding, securing, who's close? Oh, she read. Thank you. I could have done that. I was trying to remember.
You were close.
I was close. So this is going to be an ongoing process. It will never end because things will always change within your organization. Threats will always change. You'll still have the same old threats because we still have viruses and worms and various things. You just don't hear as much about them because you hear about all the new threats. Like the one that you were talking about earlier with the locking you out of your system until you pay for it. But yeah, there's always new tricks that they're trying to pull. Is it any hot in here? Okay, making sure it's not just me. See, this is what I wanted to go through. So you've got identify your information assets, prepare a ranked vulnerability worksheet, develop control strategy and plan, implement the control, assess the control. Are the controls adequate? If they are, you plan for maintenance. If they're not, you go back through. Because you need to make sure that everything is being answered for. But when you get to plan for maintenance, measure the risk of information asset. If the risk is acceptable, then you just go back. Otherwise, you come back here and you develop your plan. I like it. I chart. Much easier to understand than that other one we were looking at. So what's the difference between qualitative and quantitative?
Quantitative is
It's like an amount.
empirical amounts,
And qualitative is?
subjective.
That's good.
Details.
Numeric versus
Objective versus
non-numeric.
subjective.
Qualitative is non-numerical, but yeah. Bum, bum, bum. Benchmarking. What is benchmarking? Without reading.
Comparing against past objectives and examples.
Copying
It's,
somebody else's work.
yeah, basically. You're looking at what other organizations have done and applying it to your organization. Kind of like what you're thinking of, but that would be, that's a little different. Best business practice security efforts that provide a superior level of information protection. When considering best practices for adoption in an organization, consider does an organization resemble identified target? Because you want to make sure that whatever organization you're taking the information from, to your company, you want to make sure that it's similar. Are the expendable resources similar? Is an organization in a similar threat environment? Organizations that don't talk to each other. Okay, so these are the problems with benchmarking. No two organizations are identical. I think y'all know that. Best practices are a moving target. They're constantly changing. Researching information security benchmarks doesn't necessarily prepare a practitioner for what to do next. Baselining, that's more of what you were thinking about, baselining. Because that's using a value or metric to compare the changes over time. So what your company is currently doing versus what they do later. Other feasibility studies, organizational, operational, technical, and political. Organizational assesses how well the proposed information security alternatives will contribute to an organization's efficiency, effectiveness, and overall operation. Operational assesses user and management acceptance. Technical assesses the organization if the organization has or can acquire the technology necessary to implement. And political defines what we can or cannot occur based on the consensus and relationships among communities of interest. Recommend risk control practices. So convince the budget authorities to spend up to the value of the asset to protect from identified threat. So that's going to be the hard part, is getting your company to want to pay to protect the information. Because if your proposal to protect the information is worth more than the asset, then you're going to have a hard time getting them to do it. Chosen controls may be a balanced mixture of what provides the greatest value to as many asset pairs as possible. Organizations are looking to implement controls that don't involve such complex, inexact, or dynamic calculations. Are you more comfortable now? Okay, good. Document your results. Document, document, document. I hate documenting, but it's very important. I get lazy sometimes at work and I don't document, and it usually comes back to bite you. So always document everything. Do what?
I was agreeing with you 200%, always document.
When I first started at Tinker, I was amazing at documenting. I'd even make up extra documentation to help other people. No, I did send out an email when I came to a resolution of an issue that we'd been having in our department because they pushed the new Java. Y'all having issues with that? Well, we've been having issues with it, and I had one user. It didn't matter what I tried, I could not get her fixed. So finally, I was like, all right, fine. Scott, come here. Log into her computer, and it worked fine. So I was like, okay. So I just rebuilt her profile, and it works great now. So I spent 2 days working on something that could have been fixed by just rebuilding her profile. Yeah. but who knew? I didn't know. I honestly thought it was Java. But anyway, because they push the updates through the system, and sometimes it gets corrupt. Yeah, it's not pretty. But like I had another issue today where I went over there, and she's like, my computer won't boot. And I was like, I asked her questions before I went over there. I walked over there, and I was like, oh, press the power button on the monitor. Oh, it's fixed. You'd be surprised how many times it happens.
No.
When I was going through my first IT class here, they said, try the simple things first. They really mean it, because a lot of times it will save you a lot of time.
Plugging your power strip back into the power strip.
Or sometimes they will accidentally hit the power button on the power strip just with their feet. Or they'll knock the, like, you know, we have all laptops in our department. Sometimes they'll accidentally knock the cable apart so that the cord isn't going into the converter box, and just plug that back in and the computer starts working.
We have that one a lot. The video cables, somebody didn't screw down the video cables when we installed.
See, I don't normally get the video cables a lot.
And
But I set up all of ours, so I know that
we've
they're
had a
working.
rash of that it just wiggles loose by life.
Well, that and sometimes those are really hard to tighten in there, because it's little bitty and it's hard to get back up in there, and I hate them.
understand.
I hate them. I hate taking them off more than I hate putting them on. So sometimes I don't tighten them all the way, just because I don't want to have to be the one that tries to fight with it to get it back off.
Just tighten them some.
I do. I tighten it just enough to where it grips, so it won't fall off, but not so tight that I have to take like a screwdriver and go in there and undo it. Because some of those guys, man, they tighten it so tight you can't get it off. It's kind of like my husband with our humidifier. He'll tighten the little caps on there so tight that nobody can get them off but himself. So finally he's gotten to where he'll fill them up and he'll say, okay, you tighten it. And I just tighten it 1 or 2 turns, stick it on there, and we can all get it off. It's crazy how that works, you know? So describe risk management as comprehensive process requiring organizations to frame risk, assess risk, respond to determined risk, and monitor risk on an ongoing basis. It's very important to do that monitoring. And there's a little chart, and there's our summary. Did anybody have questions on risk? Anybody have questions on risk?
Surprised they didn't throw a more human error.
Yeah, because human error causes a lot of issues. It really does. And like, anytime they do changes or updates to our servers and stuff, you just wait, because you know something's gonna go wrong. And like they pushed an update recently, and all of our printers went down across base. Did y'all have that issue?
I know we didn't have this issue.
They made a change, and all the printers went down, and they had to go into each. They were having to go into each and every printer and make a manual adjustment to the DNS. And they were finally, it was like 2-3 days later, I was sitting there going, okay, when are we going to get our printer back? And then they came out with a push that fixed all of them around base, because I think they got tired. They realized how many thousands of printers that they were going to have to do that to.
Like,
But it was crazy. So
we had people had to remap to alternate locations and stuff to be able to print, because of how they had us, you know, which is smart. They don't have everybody on the same
printers.
set of printers. They have them on various.
See, I got lucky
servers.
because I support like 38 people. So much nicer than my 400. And we have 3 offices basically. So we have a printer in 200, a printer in 207, and one in 204. 204 is like the director's, so we don't touch that one. That one's just hers. The one in my office was the one that was down, so everybody just routed over across the hall. Yeah, they kind of complained a lot because it's behind a cipher lock, so you have to cipher lock in every time you go over there. All of our offices are behind. It's contracting. They don't want just anybody walking in. Technically, I can't even be in the office if nobody's there. Now, around Christmas time, nobody was there, and the director was like, don't worry about it, just go on in. So I was like, okay. But then they had a meeting, and it was actually one of the interns, he was like, Virginia's reading the contracts. And it's like, Virginia's not. Virginia's doing inventory. Virginia didn't even come back in here until y'all started coming in here, so I don't want to hear it. And it's like, that's stupid. Why would you even say that? And the managers were all like, just ignore him. I was like, you know what? Screw it. Not worth the anxiety. Y'all aren't here, I ain't here. But I'd only stayed that time because I was specifically told, do inventory, because Aaron didn't do it on time and we were late.
So you're assigned to the contracting supplier,
I am assigned to the contract field team.
contract field team?
They do not handle our contract. So they handle a lot of
Are
other
you
contracts.
GS or a contractor?
Do what?
Are you a GS employee?
No, I'm a contractor.
You're a contractor.
So that's why I'm not supposed to be in there if they're not there.
Well, that story is a great example of why social engineering works. Oh, I'm supposed to be here to do special inventory, not here to look at contracts.
Yeah, but they all know me.
I know, but,
Yeah. And see, the director knows that I wouldn't be reading them because, well, she kinda knows me now. All the managers trust me. A lot of them will just give me their PIN number for their phone and I'm like, I don't want it. And they're like, it's okay. It's like I never remember it afterwards anyway, but it's the fact of the matter. I don't want it because then there's the liability.
oh, yeah.
And I don't want it. It's like people are like, I look away every time someone puts their PIN in and they're like, oh, you don't have to look away. It's like, yes, I do. Because if you ever leave your CAT card in your computer, I don't know your PIN number.
Yep, plausible deniability.
Exactly. I don't want that responsibility. I don't, which is stupid because technically I could remote into any machine and steal any information that I wanted. But I don't want them ever thinking that I would do that. So, you know,
I don't think you would.
thank you. I wouldn't. And it's not really even about the job. It's about, I don't want my name associated with anything like that. You know what I mean?
Yes, ma'am.
So.
Well, if you write proper procedures and policies